So do you deeply desire having one of the sexiest, beefiest smartphones that money can buy right now? And speaking of money, are your pockets so crammed full of the stuff that your pants are officially considered a fire hazard? Well, the solution to both of your problems is this shiny wee beauty here, the Oppo Find X3 Pro. Not only is it one of the most impressive smartphones of 2021 thus far, but it'll also lighten your wallet or purse to the tune of £1,099. Now, I've had my SIM nestled snugly inside of the Oppo Find X3 Pro all week long, and frankly, I'd be quite happy to just leave it there and use this bad boy as my full-time blower if I didn't have a literal pile of other smartphones to review. From the incredible performance to the boss-level camera, there is loads of stuff to love here. So here's my full review of the Oppo Find X3 Pro, and for more of the latest greatest tech, please do subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers! Now, if you haven't killed your brain with much-needed alcohol over the previous ludicrous 12 months, you may remember that last year's Oppo Find X2 Pro swaggered onto the smartphone scene with a luxurious leather-style arse, which was both eye-catching and immensely pleasing on the palm. Well, Oppo has decided to change things up a bit and innovate for the Oppo Find X3 Pro, and has opted instead for a unique glass unibody design. The Find X3 Pro's shiny rear comes courtesy of a custom hot forging process in Oppo's own words, and frankly it's got me feeling a wee bit tingly in my man bits. That camera bump is surprisingly subtle, with lenses seamlessly built into the backplate for a unique and attractive finish. You've got a choice of designs between this mirrored finish or a more matte design instead, and as much as I enjoy admiring my baldy bunts in this thing, I'd probably rather have that frosted finish. Especially as this thing picks up fingerprints the way my stubble collects bits of crisp and pork scratchings. Of course, like basically every other premium smartphone around right now, the Oppo Find X3 Pro is unsurprisingly a 6.7-inch Godzilla. Although at least that display practically fills the front panel, there's very little in the way of bezel action, helped by the fact that the screen actually slopes around those edges, and at 193 grams it's not exactly super hefty, certainly lighter than a lot of premium rivals like that S21 Ultra and last year's Xiaomi Mi 10T Pro. Meanwhile, the IP68 water and dust resistance offers a bit of peace of mind, and the screen is still surprisingly responsive even when moist. And it's also very reassuring to have a good bit of Gorilla Glass 5 action both front and back as well. This isn't as protective if you actually drop the phone, unlike the latest Tresh's Gorilla Glass Victus, which you'll find on the likes of the Xiaomi Mi 11, but it is still very scratch resistant, so it should hopefully keep the Oppo Find X3 Pro looking nice and fresh. It's the usual story over on the software front, with Oppo slathering a bit of ColorOS 11.2 all over Android 11. ColorOS offers easier customization compared with stock Android, while adding shagloads of bonus bits like thank the baby Jesus, some proper one-handed help if you're a stumpy-fingered sufferer like myself. The edge lighting feature for incoming notifications is still spooge-worthy, and the always-on display is just as tweakable as most other UI elements. My only real complaint is that there is a fair bit of setup required with the Oppo Find X3 Pro, so for instance standard Android features like the apps tray and gesture navigation are disabled by default. Thankfully those features haven't been completely axed, though you'll just need to switch them back on again, and to do so you will unfortunately have to search around through the absolute clusterfuck of a settings menu. I heartily recommend just going into the search option at the top and just typing it in there. And thankfully Oppo doesn't cram loads of crapware onto its phones unlike others, although it does add on plenty of its own apps, including an audio recorder, a data migrator for copying bits over from your old phone, and this actually quite good Oh Relax. And this serves up all kinds of calming sounds, including the pitter-patter of rain against your window, which to be fair is common enough in Blighty anyway, and city strolling, which actually makes me kind of anxious these days. Oh god, other people. Lots of other people. All around me. Oh, too close. Turn it off. Now grease up your loins and get ready for a big old sexy specs dump. So the Oppo Find X3 Pro sports 256 gigs of storage. That's UFS 3.1, so nice and nippy. Great news if you're downloading big files or opening games like Genshin Impact. Doesn't take half an hour to load. But unfortunately there is no micro SD memory card support to expander once you fill her up. You do at least get dual SIM support, and there's also support for eSIM with selected carriers if that's your bag. And another undoubted highlight of the Oppo Find X3 Pro is that 6.7-inch AMOLED display. As I mentioned before, this does actually slope around the edges of the smartphone, and I did find that I had a couple of little issues with my palms intruding on that display and mucking up the touch responsiveness, but usually that was only when I was reclining on the sofa or in bed, for instance, so I had to clutch the phone that little bit tighter. But absolutely zero complaints with the visuals, helped along by that super soft Quad HD Plus resolution, which is dynamically scalable. Detail levels are sublime, while you also impressively have Dolby Vision and HDR10 Plus support, which help to produce lifelike pictures. You can tinker with the color modes to really boost any vibrant visuals, or stick with a more natural vibe if you like. And the Find X3 Pro can easily match any conditions for an easy viewing experience, comfortably topping the 1000 nits level for sunshiny days, while dishing up the usual array of eye comfort modes so you don't strain your peepers at 2 AM. And you've got a bit of dynamic refresh rate action on here as well, and this can scale all the way from 10Hz if you're just viewing a static image, all the way up to 120Hz if you're skimming about the place or actually using a supported app. So you'll be able to enjoy that super smooth refresh without unnecessarily draining the battery when it's not needed. As for your audio, well, those stereo speakers are fine in a pinch, although I spend most of my time hooked up to my Bluetooth headphones or speakers using the Bluetooth 5.2 support. The Oppo Find X3 Pro boasts all of the premium audio tech shenanigans that you would expect. You've got a good bit of high-res audio support, you've got that LDAC action, aptX, all the good stuff. And there's also a good bit of Dolby Atmos fine-tuning so the audio can match whatever you're actually up to. But no, before you ask, there is sod all headphone jack action here. You had to go and spoil it, didn't you? But thankfully, the Oppo Find X3 Pro does at least make amends when it comes to the performance, which, in the want of better, more sophisticated words, is absolutely shit hot. Qualcomm's Snapdragon 888 chipset is backed by an almighty 12 gigs of DDR5 RAM, and I was seriously impressed by the results after punishing this thing these past few days. I saw practically zero judders from Genshin Impact on those top detail levels and kept it maxed out at the 60 frames per second setting. Gameplay remains seriously smooth even during a lengthy session, helped along by the vapor chamber cooling, and the game space competition mode as well, which hoys all of the phone's resources at whatever game you're running. That mighty display's 240Hz touch sampling means no latency as well, ideal for fast-paced online titles where you're up against crafty whippersnappers with annoyingly youthful reactions. And you can customize the sensitivity to your liking using game space, which can also block notifications and all the usual jazz. You've also got full 5G support thanks to Qualcomm's built-in X60 modem, and with support for 13 separate 5G bands, that means you've got pretty much global coverage here, so a nice bit of future-proofing. Now, the 4500 mAh battery isn't as big as some rivals like Samsung's S21 Ultra, but it definitely does the job for your everyday shenanigans. I did manage to completely drain the Oppo Find X3 Pro on a couple of occasions, but that was generally when there was a lot of Genshin Impact and Skype action on the go. Generally, with around 5 to 6 hours of screen on time per day, I would end with around 20% charge remaining, and that includes a good bit of Deezer streaming in the background, bit of camera play, all that good stuff. And when it comes to recharging, again, the Oppo Find X3 Pro is faster than a corked up cheetah. You've got 65 watt Super VOOC support here, so it charges up definitely in under an hour. And if you've got a wireless charging pad, you've also got 30 watt Air VOOC support, and you've also got 10 watt reverse wireless charging too. So all very well and good, but I've definitely saved one of the best bits of this Oppo blower for last, namely the quad lens rear camera, headed up by a 50 megapixel IMX766 sensor with optical image stabilization. This beefy shooter supports 10-bit image capture, and you can expect dazzlingly realistic photos to be churned out no matter how tricky those conditions are. Colors are perfectly captured, so your more vibrant subjects will look just as dazzling on your screen as they do in real life. Moving subjects are handled expertly, and the portrait mode is a winner as usual. And even when shooting against the sun, I found the HDR smarts help to balance things out well. When things are proper dark, the Oppo Find X3 Pro won't cope in that auto mode, but if you switch to the impressively fast night mode, you'll once again get glorious results, very close to what you'll see with the naked eye. Now, the second lens slapped on the back of the Oppo Find X3 Pro is another 50 megapixel effort. It's an ultra-wide angle lens, and it once again uses Sony's IMX766 sensor, so there's no compromise with the photo quality. Once again, scenes are accurately reproduced with realistic colors and very fine detail packed into every snap. And some bonus software smarts can limit the usual distortion effect around the edges, so there's no sacrifice in quality there either. The third lens here is a 13 megapixel telephoto effort, which offers a 3x optical zoom, 5x hybrid, and it maxes out at 20x digital zoom. And yes, it is a far cry from the periscope zoom action of last year's Find X2 Pro, but you'll still get detailed shots at the 5 to 10 times level of zoom. By that maximum level, though, things are definitely looking rather fuzzy, and to be perfectly frank, about as appealing as a Geordie in skin-tight jeans. And last up is a 3 megapixel macro lens, and I know I dump on macro lenses quite a bit, but this is actually a fairly good one. You've got an admittedly pretty cool microscope mode which can produce some rather stunning close-up images of whatever you're pointing at. But I can't help but feel that it's just a quirky gimmick that most people won't ever use for more than a couple of minutes out of curiosity, if they even realise it's there at all. One thing is for sure though, your home movies will look seriously pimped if you shoot them on this thing. The Find X3 Pro can capture 10-bit 4K video with the same support for 1 billion colours as the photo options, and yeah, the results are once again stunning. Focus is perfect, everything looks perfectly natural, and you can skip between those 3 main lenses fairly seamlessly. Even when you're zoomed in 5 times, the image stays sharp. Audio capture is also strong, clearly picking up everything going on all around you. And even at that 4K resolution with the super steady mode switched off, you'll get a smooth finish when you're moving and shooting, no sick bag required. As for the 30 megapixel selfie cam, well, that's not as impressive as the rear cams, unfortunately. It doesn't always cope well when battling stronger light, while photos definitely lack that wow factor, but it is absolutely fine for simple shareable shots. So that's my full final review of the Oppo Find X3 Pro, and bugger me blue, it ain't cheap, but you certainly do get some primo tech for your cash, and it certainly is one of the best smartphones that you can buy right now. I've got to admit, I was hoping to be dazzled a bit more by the Oppo Find X3 Pro. I was hoping for something just that little bit more special, considering just how epic the Find X2 Pro from last year was. But you know what? If you've got the cash and you want a super premium smartphone, job done. So that's what I think, but it'd be great to hear you guys' thoughts as well. Please do slap those down in the comments below. If you want to see a bit more from the Find X3 Pro, I did a side-by-side comparison with Xiaomi's Mi 11 just last weekend gone, so go check that out. Certainly that Mi 11, it's about 300 quid cheaper, so if you don't quite have the crazy cash to stretch to the Find X3 Pro, might be a worthy alternative. And for more on the latest greatest tech, please do poke subscribe and ding that notifications bell, and have yourselves a lovely rest of the week. Cheers everyone, love you!